Hey everyone, my guest today is Julia Mayorga. Julia was born in LA. She attended the Terry Knickerbocker studio in New York City to study acting. During her first year attending the studio, she booked a series regular role on the show American Rust. She is now shooting season 2 of the show, or maybe just finished. We'll get into that in a minute. And she is also the star of the film Rare Objects, co-starring opposite its writer, director, producer, Katie Holmes. I am so honored to have you on the podcast. Welcome, welcome, Julia.
Oh, thank you. I feel so lucky to be here. Thank you for having me.
Can you say your last name for me? I want to make sure that I said it correctly.
Yes, there's two ways. If you're a Spanish speaker, it would be Mayorga, but I think it's easier if you say Mayorga.
I know, but the way you say it, everything should be said the way it should be said. So here's my little known fact. Bill Camp lives for 3 floors above me in my apartment building. Bill Camp and Beth Marvel are the reason I live in this building. And I bring that up, listeners, because Bill played Julia's dad in the first season of American Rust. And I'm watching it going, oh, that's where he's been, because he had a dog walker walking his dog. So that's how I always know when Bill is shooting something. And then to see you guys in it and to see actually him play someone who is so very different from the Bill I know in daily life. And you are so magnificent on this series. So let's get into it. You were born in LA, but it sounds like some magical things happened in your career here studying acting. But let's figure out, how did you get from LA to New York? When did you get the acting bug? Can you talk a little bit about growing up and who was in your house and how were the arts introduced to you? And then we'll get to these glorious performances that I've been privileged to see you in recently.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Yes. So I grew up in LA. Both my parents are from Nicaragua. They came here illegally. They crossed the border. They had me and my sister. My parents separated. So I was raised by my mom, single parent. And I grew up in LA. I grew up moving a lot. I grew up in East LA. I grew up in Koreatown, Mid City, all over LA. So I'm very much an LA native. Um, Being in school, you know what? I think I was always just afraid to even do any of the arts in school. I think I was just like, I'm just gonna do school. I'm gonna get good grades. I'm gonna go to college. And I started with modeling when I was around 18, I want to say. I worked at a flea market. I started I started selling jewelry at a flea market. And I started for the different vendors, they would ask me if I could shoot for their online shops. So we would exchange. I would either they would give me free clothes and I would shoot for their online shops. And yeah, I started with modeling, and eventually when I got the courage, I was like, okay, I feel comfortable in front of a camera. So let me try to take an acting class here and there, but I kept it very quiet. I didn't want anyone to know. I was a little scared about it, but I think that's how it started. I got very, very lucky from the beginning that I got representation. So I was auditioning at the same time. And you know what? It just wasn't quite working, I want to say. I think I was putting so much pressure on myself when I was going to these auditions. I was juggling, I think in my own head, being, I need more training, or I need this and I need that. I'm not prepared. And I remember watching this documentary. I was watching this documentary with it was John Cazale's life, and I just really enjoyed the type of actor he was and how people spoke of him. And he's so giving. He has these little moments where he's always so creative. And just, I remember there was this one moment in the documentary where I don't know if it was Dog Day Afternoon, that they were talking about the behind the scenes of Dog Day Afternoon, where like it's literally a split moment and he like checks his zipper and it's like a funny, like cute moment where he's always coming up with these ideas and people are like, he's hilarious, he improvs, he does this, and I'm just like, I want to do that, because I feel like my nerves are getting the best of me. Like I keep somehow getting really close to getting the job. Like somehow I'm in like the last three, but then I get to the last point of the audition and I like freak out and I like self-sabotage and I like forget all the lines or, just something where I'm just like, I'm like, well, how can I relax? How can I just have fun? What stood out, I want to say, was he he did theater, he had a group of friends who were like doing plays, who were reading. It was very immersed, and I just felt like that was New York. Also maybe because I'm born and raised in LA, there's like a level of comfortability here, that I'm just like, maybe I need to go. Maybe I need to like get up and leave and do it. So within 2 weeks of watching that documentary, I started like searching the acting schools in New York. And I remember I had met through an ex-boyfriend of mine at the time, he had this amazing friend, Yul Vasquez, who had told me about the Terry Knickerbocker studio, who he had studied 20 years prior. And that was on the list that I was researching, and I'm like, okay, we'll put a little star on that. But the more research I did, the more I was like, okay, I don't know where to go. There's so many places. I mean, anywhere. There's so many.
Yeah. How do you even begin?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you don't know. I don't know anything. So I interviewed with a few, and I was like, let me just feel it out. And when like, I think it really clicked with the Terry Knickerbocker studio. I was very curious. It was more curiosity than being afraid, that I was like, let me just go with this gut feeling. So I went to the studio, I went to the summer program.
But wait, that's a big jump. Like you have to get from LA to New York to do this summer intensive or whatever it is. Do you have family here? Had you been to New York before? You know the name Yul Vasquez. I mean, like, do you call him and say, do you remember I met you through an ex-boyfriend of mine? Or how
Right.
do you start?
We weren't really friends. Like I had just met him one time. But I like to skip over the small details. Really, it was a disaster because I had an apartment here. And I still had a lease, and I was with like one of my really good friends, and I told her, and I had no money either. So I was like, I'm waitressing at night. I have no money. I have this apartment. How am I going to get to New York? So I remember I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to pack up all my personal belongings. I'm going to Airbnb my apartment in LA. I'm going to charge everything on a credit card, and hopefully hopefully it'll get paid off by the time I book a job. But it was just kind of like, I'm spontaneous that way. I'm just like, it's going to work. It's going to work
Leap
out.
of faith. You're a leap of faith person.
Yeah.
Had you been to New York before in your life? Had you gone ever?
I had been in New York for like, I think I had like a returning flight from somewhere, and I accidentally stopped in New York, and I was like, I'm going to stay here for a couple of days. I had been in New York for like a few days. I had never truly explored too much.
Got it. Okay. So
Yeah.
you do it. You sublet your place. How do you have a place to stay when you get to New York? Like, so you took care of the LA place. Then what happens when you get off your plane?
I had waitressed with a friend who turned to a friend, and she was originally from New York, and she had moved back, and she was in this tiny studio apartment, and I asked if I could stay with her, and she said yes, which didn't end up working out because two people in a really, really small space.
Yeah.
Just sometimes you bicker, but at the time she was so gracious to let me stay.
Totally. You had a starting off point.
With the starting off point was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I think I need to move and give you your space.
Yeah. So you're here, you know one person who lets you stay in their studio. You have a school to go to. You've
Mhm.
never used the subway, right? Like you're navigating New York.
You're taking me back right now because I feel like sometimes when it's those experiences, I love to like just put it in the back of my head, like I don't remember this, but now you're taking me back. And yeah, it was, I was very excited and I was also scared because I feel like I get a little frantic sometimes, like I remember getting lost taking those trains. I remember trying to leave early because I was like, I need to make a good impression. I need to, it's all of the rush, all of that. I got a job also when I got there. I was like, I need something because how am I going to pay for my life? So I was going to school and waitressing at the Williamsburg Hotel. Um, and it was fun, but it was hard because also waitressing in New York is very different. The hours are different. You're there sometimes till 3 a.m. and you got to get up and go to school. But I did the summer intensive at Terry and I just immediately felt like, because I mean, when you take these programs, they tell you you're not allowed to audition. They want you to
Mhm.
focus on the work. But I was like,
Correct. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's not going to work out for me because I need a job.
I have bills. I have bills. Thank you. Unless this comes with a massive scholarship, that's not going to happen.
Exactly. So I was like, we're gonna ignore that and we're gonna audition simultaneously. So I mean, I not that I recommend that path for everyone, but um
But that's what you needed to do.
yeah. So I was auditioning and I was going through the summer intensive, which was like acting, movement, voice. It was so much fun. And I started noticing the difference in the auditions and the response I was getting, even through the self tapes. Like my
Uh,
managers were like, this is really good. Like, keep up the good work. And then I was getting feedback from producers and I was like, oh my God, I think I know what I'm doing, or I'm on the right path at least. And that just made me, by the time the summer intensive was over, I remember thinking, I don't feel like I could leave yet. I don't feel like I'm done here. So I think I do this thing where I get very indecisive. So I'm just like, maybe I need to try another studio and see, like, maybe it wasn't this studio. Maybe like if I stay in New York, like I was trying to convince myself that I didn't want to do a 2-year program. I wanted something shorter.
right.
So I went to a different studio for like a week and I was like, yeah, no, I think it's that studio and I think I need to do the 2-year program. And so I basically abandoned my place. My friend my friend ended up doing a side hustle with my place. I told her she can keep all this stuff and like, because I'm leaving my lease and she can make money off the Airbnb. And she did, and she was super cool about it. She knew that, I was doing acting and she was very supportive. And I stayed. I got another apartment. I was like subletting and I stayed in New York and I did Terry's 2-year program and I really do truly think it changed my life in so many ways. I met so many wonderful people. It's nice when we're all collectively struggling.
Well,
And
that's your first artistic community. Like now you're,
Mhm.
I always, sometimes I teach and I always tell the students, like, look around this room. Everyone in here potentially is your future family
Yeah.
and your artistic family, and you can all make things together. And it's an amazing thing. I look back, I'm still friends with people from my very first acting class. Like it's so intense and wonderful and exciting and hard. And it when I was reading about your jobs, were both American Rust and Rare Objects self-tapes?
Rare Objects was a self-tape and American Rust was in person.
Right, because American Rust was cast pre the COVID shutdown.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that you guys then had to delay filming because of that. So can you talk about,
Mhm.
you go from flea market modeling to starring on a series. Adam Rapp is one of our most beloved theater playwrights who has then been snapped up by film and television because he's so brilliant. Talk about American Rust and what the audition process was like, and when or why do you feel like, okay, this one clicked? Like, I got this one. I didn't get close. I got it. And now I'm shooting a series.
I think I'm trying to remember. I went to the audition and I remember being nervous. I remember doing all the breath work and breathing exercises leading up to going to the room. I was like, okay, I think funny enough, both of the roles, I I don't think I was 100% that I was gonna get them. I almost was like, yeah, I don't know if I see myself here, but I really wanted to. I really wanted to try. So, and I had ideas on what to do with the characters, and I just was like, I did all the work prior. So I'm just like, now it's about the moment of like the moment before of breathing, relaxing, and just doing it. Cause I know I over prepare. You know, I know I try to overcompensate for like, okay, in case I get nervous, like the lines are going to be there, this is going to be there, so let me, so I think there was a lot of that. I went in the room, Av Kaufman, who I had auditioned before, I think like that week before, and I think she enjoyed, I think she liked my work, so she brought me back for this. I don't know. I don't remember once I was in the room, to be honest. I don't remember. Yeah, like it goes black and then you get out and I'm like, what did I do? I remember the second time I went. I remember the second time I remember I had a chemistry read, I guess, with David Alvarez, who plays my brother, who plays Isaac in the show, and we were going back and forth. We were just casually speaking Spanish, just trying to see the vibe of like we could play siblings. And then I had a monologue that they had given me the night before that I tried drilling because I was like, oh my God, I only have a couple hours. I think it was like 8 p.m. they sent it to me, and I was like, I need to get this in my head. And we went over that for a really long time. But I remember there was excitement, but there was calmness because they kept asking me to do it differently. So I was like, okay, there must be something here, right? Like, I don't know quite. Maybe it was because I was also doing the program at the time that I was doing it every day. I was doing acting every day, and then I was auditioning, so it didn't feel so, because sometimes when you're auditioning and you're not in a class, maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what I needed at the time. I'm not.
That it wasn't so precious, that you were so busy, just immersed in your life, that this was an appointment on a Tuesday, not, oh my God, I have to get this. Or so the stakes weren't super high emotionally in
No.
that way.
Yeah, and to be honest, I had to rush back to class after this audition. So I was I was almost like, I was focused on the audition, but then as soon as it was done, I was like, I gotta rush I gotta run across town and go to class. So
Yeah.
now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it was a combination of all these things that really helped. And I didn't hear back for, I want to say, over a month. I didn't think I got it.
Right.
Just went on to the next auditions, and I remember getting the call. I remember being at this little restaurant in Brooklyn in Bushwick with my best friend, and I got the call, and we were like jumping up and down at this in this restaurant, and I was like, you get the call, and then immediately my head goes, oh my God, could I do it?
Was it a series regular part in season 1?
Yeah.
So you'd signed the contract, like you understood financially what it meant, how many episodes it was going to be. Like there's so much that goes into auditioning when a deal's already in place. It's very different than auditioning without a deal in place, because you're seeing numbers, not just creativity. At least that's been my experience. like, oh my God, that would mean not waitressing, right? Like that would,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
would mean not waitressing for a while. Um, when you get to set and begin, you didn't have a lot of experience doing on camera stuff, right? I mean, in our, we make short films with our friends and sort of start trying to figure out how and what it is to be on camera. But it's very different when you're suddenly on set with a lot of, I mean, Jeff Daniels, Maura Tierney, Bill Camp, as we said, the list goes on and on of really lauded, respected actors in this community. Did you find that it was a very welcoming place? Do you feel like everyone was sort of in their own boxes and, not that connected when you weren't working? What was the vibe? Because it was post COVID or during COVID still, like were all the protocols still in
During
place?
it was hard because I don't know a set without COVID. So
Right. That's so interesting.
I think in the beginning they were very, very cautious of us not really being so close in proximity because we have opposite set schedules. Some people are in certain scenes and like you can't risk people getting sick. If I'm speaking to Jeff and he has to shoot tomorrow and I'm not, and then we both get COVID, then that it's just not going to work out. So I think there was a lot of isolation during that time. And also even the cast and the crew, it was almost like we had these like people had these sticks where it was like you got to be like 6 feet away from each other and it was just very chaotic. I did get to spend a lot of time with Bill Camp because he had most of his scenes with me, which was heaven sent, and I am so lucky. And I remember just feeling so lucky to sit next to him, and he would indulge. He would talk to me for hours. We would sit down and I'm like, at a certain point, I'd like, I'd have another thought as he's speaking, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting with Bill Camp, and he's talking to me, and he's talking to me about acting, and he's, it's beautiful. He was so welcoming. So I learned so much from the day he got on set, even just watching him. Um, you know,
I did an episode with him. You will enjoy listening to his episode on this podcast because he's really generous in that way about craft and process and how he works and how by trial and error he's figured out what his
mhm.
best, I mean, talk about like always coming to set. He always likes to know all his lines, even in a play before the first day of rehearsal. Um, and he is such an incredible storyteller. I mean, he has so many stories.
He's wonderful. He even just technical stuff that I might have not known.
Can you
He,
give examples just for listeners who are waiting for their first series regular part?
I'll give you two of what. So the first day, I remember the first day he came on set. I don't think he had any lines, but I think he was like improving a little bit to see what, we were entering the house. It was nighttime, and I remember he was asking people's names, which I loved, like with the crew, like I think because sometimes I'm so nervous, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't speak to anyone right now. I'm not human. But I love that he was so welcoming. He was asking questions. He asked if there was this huge light in front that was illuminating the house, and he's like, is that supposed to be a light to illuminate the house, or is it supposed to be something else? And he made it up that was the moon. So he made, a little joke about the moon when he's coming into the house, and just the playfulness. I think as soon as he got on set, that I was like, oh, okay, so it's serious, but it's not that serious, and I enjoyed how fluid he was. And then also, I think sometimes as a first time actor, at least for me, I don't want to seem clueless, and I don't want to ask questions, which I should. It's my first time. What am I expecting,
I know. And it's not like they looked at your resume and saw 22 other shows. Like they know, but also you don't want to waste anyone's time. Everything feels, I get it, of course.
So he would tell me, you can ask if you want to know what the shot is. You can ask if this is a close up, like you should know if this is, if this is a wide or whatever, like and just technical things like that. He also said, like, if you want to watch a performance, this is who you ask. You can watch a take just to see what you, just little things like that. Where when we would talk, and that just things I can do, things I could ask, things to inform me and make me a better actor. That were just were it seems so small, but when it's coming from someone who's so like who you admire, who's such an amazing actor, you're just very thankful that you're like, oh, I'm being looked like, he's looking out for me. And
I love that.
and that just also
Yeah.
helps our characters, because he did play my dad and he was sort of taking this caretaker role sometimes. And that to me, not many people get that on their first job or
Yeah.
ever. So I felt incredibly blessed to be in his presence and to have someone who knew so much and was giving at the same time.
And so many jobs in was still really interested in the work in that way,
Mhm.
right? Like to be so present. You also, you know, suddenly anytime I'd be like washing dishes and there'd be morning TV on, you and Katie Holmes were on my television talking about this film, Rare Objects,
Mhm.
that's also filled with amazing theater people. Alan Cummings, I mean, there's really, obviously he's a movie star too, but people who really come from theater background. How was it? You're probably too young. I mean, Dawson's Creek is not something you grew up watching. Maybe you can find it, I don't know, obviously on YouTube. Maybe it's on one of the streaming services now,
Mhm.
but she really was like such a huge star from such a young age. And she's just been public for so long. And even if you had never seen anything she did. Obviously, we live in a very tabloid society. We knew she was married to Tom Cruise. We knew they were, there's all of this information about her out there. But anyone who knows her just talks about like what a beautiful artist she is. So not tabloid
Mhm.
persona, but like such a deeply rooted person
Mhm.
in her art and her family. And so you guys worked so closely together. She's also a mom, like you have been working with these people who have such maternal and paternal instincts. And as a newcomer, what an amazing thing to be surrounded by those types. So can you talk a little bit about getting that movie and working on that movie? And was that also, that's also a COVID production?
Yes, but this one was a little more relaxed than
They
than
weren't measuring how many inches you and the other person were at all
no,
times apart from each
no.
other.
That only lasted for so long. Then they had to give it up because it was enough of that. But yeah, I got so I wrapped Rust and I went to New York. I was living in New York for a little bit and I was auditioning, and I got this audition, and I think I had three at the same time on a weekend that I was just like I didn't want to I didn't want to do a bad job. It's not that sometimes because you got to get it in time. And I asked my managers if I could have more time. They're like, no, they're like really rushing. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can. And they pushed me. They were like, no, like this one's important. Like you should try it. So I remember I did the tape. I hated it. And I got one of those, it was one of those moments where I felt I shouldn't do this. I'm a bad actor. Like, there's just sometimes I just get in my head. But because there was so much pressure on like getting it in time, I sent it anyway, even though I didn't think I did a good job. And by Wednesday, I think that was on a Monday, Sunday or Monday. By Wednesday, I was meeting Katie. And by Friday, I had the part, which was insanity. I was I just felt a lot of pressure again because I was like, how am I going to do this in such a short amount of time? We were going to shoot within like a week and a half, I want to say. So there wasn't a lot of time for preparation.
And
But
this is a character with it's all about mental health. I mean, it's not
yeah,
it's not that's a lot. to trust that you can just jump in and learn it.
I I don't know that I trusted every day, but I was
Yeah.
doing the work every day. So
Yeah.
I was like, it's. I also know this. I feel like I related so much to Benita, so that really helped. Katie was wonderful along the way. We met beforehand, and went through the script, and we discussed ideas, and she listened to certain things that I was like, I'm not sure about this. And that's also a nice little thing that she edited certain things. She also co-wrote the script, and she throughout the whole process, what I always felt supported. I always felt I don't think I got to the part where I felt so overwhelmed, because with things like this, and you're shooting every single day, and I'm in almost every scene. So it's like I'm memorizing at night, I'm shooting in the morning, I'm going home and showering and doing it all over again. But I I was I was so immersed in the project, and I had so many wonderful people that were collaborating with me, that it made it easier. It didn't feel like, oh my God, I have to do this job and I have to do it good. It just felt, it felt like I was living in Benita's story, and Alan Cummings' character and Derek Luke, both they play Kessler and Windshot. It just made it very real. It made me forget that I had to do all this work in such a short amount of time.
Can I ask you, so there are many scenes in that film, obviously you and Katie and characters who meet in a mental health um institution. Uh but there are also a lot of scenes with your character's mother. And I want to ask you, you described at the beginning of this, your mother and father and how they came here. It's a story that we hear so often, but it's not a story for you. This is your family. And this is your story for real. How has is your mom still alive? Your mom?
Yeah.
So what has this been like for her? And obviously there's a lot you could draw upon. You mentioned going to college and the importance of education for you, even the importance of studying your craft. Like there's this real, I have a lot of friends and a lot of people on the show who are first generation, and what that means and what you carry with that is really different for everyone, but it's a theme in your life, and
Yeah.
responsibility, and making your family proud, and knowing what they went through to get here. And so
Mhm.
what are you going to do with the opportunity that they wanted for their family? And so can you talk a little bit about your own mom and how she is connecting and relating to this, and what this means for your family, this success and this storytelling that you're doing?
Oh, that's such a thoughtful question. I there is pressure that, but I truly believe I put this pressure on myself. um my there was never an expectation in life where she was like, you have to do this, you have to do that. She just wants, the have to, I think, is you have to try, and you have to try to have a better life, whatever that is. She was never too pushy on anything. I think I think what they know, like what, at least what my mom knew, is okay, the ideal plan is we come here, you go to college, you get a good job, and you're set, like you'll have a good life. So I think because that's the formula, they get a little scared if our parents get a little scared if you don't follow that. And I definitely did not follow that at all. I went to college for 1 year, and then I stopped, and then I was waitressing, and I think she got scared when she was like, oh, she's waitressing, like I hope she doesn't, not that there's
Right.
anything wrong with waitressing, but she has the plan of go to college.
Have a better life.
That's going to be easier work. I don't want it to
Yeah.
be so hard on you.
What
And
kind of jobs did your mom have when you were growing up to support you? Do you have a sister or a brother?
I have a sister. I mean,
A sister.
I have multiple sons. I don't just have eight. I have three sisters. I have two stepsisters, and
Okay.
from both parents. Yeah. My mom's has been a factory worker her whole life. She's worked multiple jobs, but she's always supported us. So she just didn't want us to have such a hard life. And I think even the modeling scared her, because she's like, it's inconsistent. Even the waitressing, like, okay, how long is it gonna last? And then the acting, I think she was just like, I think she just didn't say anything at that point. She was like, I'm gonna let you do whatever. Like she doesn't understand when I'm like, Mom, I'm going to New York. She's like, what do you mean you're going to New York? What do you mean you're leaving the nest? Like she's very overprotective, and I don't think she understood for a while. She didn't understand what I was doing or where I was spending all my time, and I think today she just went to go see Rare Objects in the movie theater. My whole family went, and I was in Pittsburgh at the time, so they sent me photos. And that moment was just, it's a crazy moment. My like Nicaragua was a third world country. We don't like, this is a dream, that I'm the first to ever even attempt to go to college in the States, or to even attempt to be an actor and actually do it. It's it's a beautiful moment to share with someone, with my family, and knowing how, you know, in Spanish you say si se puede. You like, yes, we can, like, yes, it can happen. So it's so it's such, I mean, I'm so grateful for all the people that I've worked for, Katie for giving me the opportunity, for Adam Rapp, for all these wonderful people who have put me in their projects, and the actors I've worked alongside. And yeah, it's a dream. It's a dream that I'm doing it. I don't know that little me thought it was actually going to be possible, but it's it's exciting. It's very beautiful.
It's so beautiful. You're looking at, in this photograph, that's Anthony Rapp, Adam's brother, and he and I did You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown together on Broadway. And I've known Adam for so long, and it's just been really an incredible journey watching both those boys conquer their artistic dreams in the way that they have, with a lot of integrity, like a lot of integrity and generosity, which I think in their story stems so much from their mom, who was a nurse and also a single mom raising her family. And here's to the moms, right? Who just,
To the women.
the women who give us I don't know, like permission to
Mission
to
Universe.
permission and love, right?
Mhm.
So is there a moment that I want to ask you before I let you go? Wait, so you have wrapped season 2 of American Rust at this point?
Literally just wrapped. I just got back to LA. Like my life is still packed up in bags.
Okay, so you really just finished. Is there, if you had to pick one moment, like if I could relive this moment over and over again from both these projects, sort of like, I don't know, yeah, like if that were the, like my favorite record to bring to a desert island, right? Like my favorite moment from American Rust and Rare Objects that you'll treasure forever and like put in a little time capsule. I'm sure there are many, but if you had to distill it down to like, okay, from American Rust, it's this, and from Rare Objects, it's this.
So from Rare Objects, it's a moment where it's a very brief moment in the movie, but we shot this, and it was me and Katie Holmes's character, Deanna, and we were like, Benita was trying on all her dresses, and we were like dancing and put on the record player. I think that was such like a little kid moment where, you play dress up, and as adults, like it just it just reignites that. It just reminds you, like, we're acting and we're having fun. We're being our younger selves again. I think that moment, if I can encapsulate that and remember that on my projects to have fun, that's very special. And then for American Rust, Jesus, I feel like, because I've been shooting 2 seasons of this, I feel like um I would actually encapsulate the moments that I spent with Bill Camp, and it wasn't necessarily because the acting between our characters was a lot of the time a little hard, and it wouldn't be necessarily the although I love those moments. I love the combative and going back and forth, but it would be that, and it would also be when we were sitting there and we were talking because acting is also about just connecting with people. Doesn't necessarily always have to be on set.
Yeah. So before I let you go, is there a little known fact about you that you can share?
A little known fact. I think I'm very see, I've been thinking about this question. And I think the more generalized version of this, the little known fact, I think I like to surprise myself. I'm very fly by the seat of my pants, so I can't wait. I can't wait to to see what that is next, even on the next projects or even moving to New York or moving here. And maybe I'm also thinking that I want to move somewhere for a year, somewhere else out of the States. So yeah, little known fact, really spontaneous. Don't know what's happening next.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't wait to see what you spontaneously create for us to get to see. Julia, I'm so thrilled that you came on the show today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You've been so wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.